A man opened the door to the room, and outside, countless zombies had gathered, but they all mistook him for one of their own. Soon after, Beta arrived in the midst of the zombie horde, wearing a black and white mask. Half of it had been cut from Alpha's skull, so they could be together forever. Today, he was leading the zombie horde to annihilate the human community. To Beta's surprise, the door was unguarded, so they marched right in. There was no one to stop them from entering. Half an hour later, the zombies had been through every inch of the neighborhood and hadn't found a single person. Beta couldn't help but realize that these damn enemies had already escaped.
No sign of them. They left quickly. Couldn't have gone far.
We search elsewhere.
What Beta didn't expect was that there were still people hiding above their heads. It was Alden and his partner, Aaron. They deliberately hid here to monitor the movements of the zombie horde and alert the larger group at the first sign of trouble. Alden poked his head out to eavesdrop, but Beta seemed to sense something and turned to look directly at him, startling Alden into holding his breath. Aaron used sign language to inquire if they had been discovered. If that happened, I don't need to think about what would happen to both of them. Alden cautiously peeked out again, and it seemed that Beta had not discovered them, so he breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, the residents of Alexandria's safe zone had already left yesterday. They had all relocated to a factory in the outskirts. Not only them, but the people from Oceanside and the hilltop were also there. Everyone had come up with a plan to completely deal with the zombie horde. If the Whisperers couldn't find anyone in Alexandria's safe zone, their next target would likely be Oceanside. As soon as the zombie horde arrived, they would use a carriage with speakers to lure the zombies away. There was a cliff about 100 meters from the sea, so this would permanently eliminate the threat without being chased by these lunatics anymore. The only problem now was that the speaker system had a problem and couldn't play. Luke checked and found that one of the components was damaged, and he needed someone to go out and find the replacement part. As soon as Luke finished speaking, Carol volunteered. She really wanted to do something for everyone. Carol set off, and Kelly, concerned for her safety, accompanied her on the journey. Daryl was wandering in the woods near the factory at this moment, primarily to keep an eye on the surroundings and ensure that no Whisperer scouts would appear here. After a while, even Judith came out. She wanted to protect everyone like her uncle. Daryl was tempted to tell her to go back, but Judith insisted over and over again, and all he could do was tell her to stay close and not wander off. After Beta and the zombie horde left Alexandria's safe zone, they headed in the direction of Oceanside. However, Beta started to feel that something was amiss. It didn't make sense for these people to be waiting for them in Oceanside unless there was some kind of trap. The woman beside Beta noticed his hesitation and cautiously spoke up.
Pack believes in your wisdom. We follow the Alpha. Beta.
The word Alpha was a forbidden taboo now, and anyone mentioning it would face dire consequences. But just as Beta was about to take action, the zombie horde transmitted a message to him. Beta stopped, prepared to listen to the guidance of the Guardians.
Faith in your strength.
The woman narrowly escaped death and remained in place. Thinking that Beta had gone mad, she believed that staying any longer would endanger her life. So, the zombie horde continued its march towards Oceanside, with Aaron and Alden still trailing behind. Half an hour later, Daryl and Judith were still patrolling in the woods. Daryl took the opportunity to teach the young girl how to be a proficient hunter, emphasizing the importance of blending in with nature. Suddenly, from a distance, 4 or 5 zombies appeared. Daryl aimed his crossbow. Noticing that the first zombie was somewhat different, he shot it in the shoulder with an arrow, and sure enough it was the Whisperers. Instead of going after the Whisperer, they go up and kill the zombies. When they were done with the zombies, they went in that direction. The guy was wounded and probably couldn't get far. 5 minutes later, following the blood trail, they arrived at a shallow pit where the Whisperer was lying, gasping for breath. She seemed to have no fight left in her. This woman was the same one who had narrowly escaped Beta's attempt to kill her earlier. I didn't expect to run into Daryl in the woods after escaping that madman. Daryl told her that if you answered the questions honestly, I would save you, and the woman agreed.
You a scout?
I was going off on my own.
Why?
I had no choice. Lost it after what you did to her.
So you know where we are?
I don't know.
To Judith's astonishment, She thought Uncle Daryl was going to help the woman, but she didn't expect this outcome.
She's gonna die.
We're gonna leave her?
Come on.
Maybe she has a family.
Children are naturally kind-hearted, perhaps. After experiencing many difficulties in the years to come, Judith would understand Daryl's actions. Beta's zombie horde was still advancing. This guy's been off his rocker since Alpha died. He keeps hearing the zombies talking to him. Although he knew those people were not in Oceanside, he followed the guidance of the zombies. At this moment, a cat appeared in front of them, running to their left. Beta realized that this might be a sign from the zombies. In fact, Beta was right. That cat was brought along by Alexandria's safe zone, but it liked to run around. Aaron and Alden, who were following behind, were also surprised. The zombie horde had suddenly slowed down, and their direction was towards the factory. They realized something was amiss and tried to use their walkie-talkies to relay a message back, but all they heard was static, and there was no signal. Now, their only option was to run back to report the situation. However, as they turned around, 7 or 8 whisperers surrounded them. Originally, they wouldn't necessarily lose in a physical fight, but these whisperers even had guns. 10 minutes later, in the forest, Daryl received a message from Gabriel.
Oh, Gabriel?
Daryl, sorry,
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
come back. They surrounded the
Gabriel!
wagon.
Gabriel!
Beta stared at the house in front of him, convinced that these people were here. He had growing faith in the power emanating from the zombie horde. With so many zombies surrounding them, the houses felt like sailboats adrift in the sea, ready to be engulfed at any moment. Inside, the group of people grew nervous, rapidly preparing to prevent the zombies from breaching the upper floors. Gabriel glanced at the zombie horde, now downstairs. In disbelief at their overwhelming numbers, he couldn't help but wonder if they would survive this ordeal. At that moment, RJ and Aaron's daughter appeared behind Gabriel. He wanted to comfort the children, so he said, "Look at my fingers. Individually, they may seem weak, but when they come together, they become a powerful force. Our team is just like that." He continued, "It's not just our 4 communities, it's our families out there." Gabriel's right. Everyone lives for the team, like right now. Even if there's tens of thousands of zombies out there, Daryl and Carol, they're gonna come back and fight together. Nobody is running away. Eugene and the others were out there searching for new allies. And a year ago, the Hilltop sent a message to a man.
Together.
Meanwhile, in Oceanside, a man had arrived, and it was Virgil, who had previously been left on the island. Although it was unclear how Virgil had managed to escape, Michonne's sincerity had ultimately touched him. However, at this moment, Oceanside was empty, not a soul in sight. Of course, Aaron and Alden, who were surrounded, were not giving up. They were determined to find a way to break through the encirclement of the Whisperers and make it back to deliver their message. Everyone was putting in their utmost effort, and Gabriel wanted to convey this spirit to the children. Even in the face of thousands of zombies, Beta was currently directing the zombie horde forward, and within just half an hour, the survivors' camp was completely surrounded. Inside the house, tension ran high, but these survivors, who had experienced numerous hardships, didn't panic. After some discussion, they devised a plan. Gabriel promptly began organizing their actions. The first step was to set up traps in the hallways. Daryl had crafted homemade bombs, tying their fuses to the railings so that they would trigger if the Whisperers attempted to come up. Next, they needed to figure out how to deal with the zombies outside. Gabriel thinks that although it's a deviation from the original plan, they can still use the speakers to lure the zombies to the cliff and destroy them. Luke chimed in, saying that the equipment was now fixed, just needing a battery connection to the carriage, making it ready for playback. However, a significant challenge lay ahead. The wagon is just outside the zombie horde. They have to find a way to get this equipment out, while they could smear themselves with zombie blood to slip through the horde. The Whisperers were still mixed among them, posing a significant threat. Gabriel made a quick decision, suggesting they divide into 4 teams, each consisting of 2 individuals. One person would be at the front to provide cover, while the other would carry the equipment. This plan was quickly agreed upon. Lydia volunteered to help, citing her expertise in navigating the zombie horde. However, the people from Oceanside strongly opposed her involvement, as they did not trust this former Whisperer. especially in a life or death situation. Eventually, Lydia was reluctantly excluded. The 8 individuals began their preparations, donning overcoats and smearing zombie blood on themselves. Daryl handed Kelly the masks he had acquired, finding them more effective than anything else. He then looks over at Negan and asks him to come along. He's good at this sort of thing. However, Negan declined, stating, "I'm not going. The Whisperers would love to flay me alive. Especially that big bastard. If I walk through the zombies and they see me, everyone I'm with will be in danger." Daryl turned around cursing, thinking Negan was full of shit. There was no time for a fight now. Gabriel opened the door, and it was time to set out. Even though they were all good at post-apocalyptic survival, they were still a little apprehensive at the moment. After all, they had to get through so many zombies. Daryl closed the door behind them. This mission was extremely high risk. The 8 of them stood at the door, feeling the low, guttural growls of the zombies outside. They tried their best to calm their emotions. Daryl unsheathed his dual knives and nodded, signaling that everyone was ready. Jerry gripped the lucky charm his wife had given him and turned the doorknob. As the door opened, zombies flooded in, but their successful disguise prevented the zombies from recognizing them. The group breathed a collective sigh of relief. Once the small space inside was packed with zombies, the 8 individuals slowly began moving towards the outside. The presence of zombies provided cover, making it difficult for the lurking Whisperers to spot them. Once outside, they truly felt the overwhelming presence of the massive zombie horde. This mission was a severe test of their mental resilience. Any mistake could lead to a gruesome end. Although Kelly was young, she showed no fear and followed Daryl closely. There were simply too many zombies outside for Beta to notice them. Carol was with Beatrice from Oceanside and they were relatively calm. Luke and his girlfriend formed another group, with the woman gripping Luke's hand unconsciously due to nervousness. Magna was in a tough spot, with several zombies constantly pressing against her, pushing her to the brink of a breakdown. A hand was on Magna's shoulder, and it was Jerry. He pulled her back, trying to maneuver around the pressing zombies. 10 minutes later, Daryl's side was almost through, but they didn't notice a knife-wielding Whisperer in front of them. This person was hit by an arrow and let out a scream, and was immediately eaten by countless zombies. His fate was simply miserable. The arrow had been shot by their companion in the building. Since they had left, Gabriel and the others had been using binoculars to track and provide cover. Magna had also noticed the Whisperer ahead, and she was nervous because any action would surely attract the zombies' attention. Luckily, their teammates above acted swiftly, preventing a catastrophic outcome. As Beta approached the house, he was alerted by the sound of screaming and turned his head to look up.
Tighten the herd.
At Beta's command, the Whisperers began to operate, and the zombies gradually gathered in that direction. Slowly the gap in the group of zombies is getting smaller and smaller. Trying to pass through them is very difficult, almost sticking to the zombies in the advance. Gabriel and his team, who were providing cover above, lost their target. They could no longer find the Whisperer, and the 8 companions below were out of sight. It was as if they had been swallowed by the sea of zombies. Just at that moment, a massive explosion echoed from the stairwell, accompanied by a scream. The Whisperers had definitely made their way up. Daryl's traps had done their job. 3 individuals lay on the ground, with the lead person suffering a particularly gruesome fate. More Whisperers were coming up behind them. Judith immediately sprinted back and closed the door.
They're coming up.
Inside, there were elderly people and children who were not suited for combat. So, they barricaded the door with furniture and appliances to buy some time. The situation was dire, and Negan found Lydia, telling her, "You can escape. Navigating through the zombie horde should be easy for you, and staying here likely means not making it out alive. They won't trust us anyway." Lydia declined. She wanted to fight alongside them. She then questioned Negan, "Why aren't you leaving?" Negan chuckled and replied, "I'm not exactly a hero, but I've got something I need to do now." Negan then handed Lydia the Alpha's mask, something she should keep. Negan then prepared to go down the lift shaft to help a team that was not very accepting of him. Outside, 4 individuals had already made it through the zombie horde and were crouched by a tree trunk, waiting. After 10 minutes of waiting and no one coming, they wondered if the remaining 2 teams had been killed. If they don't have all the equipment, their plan will be ruined. Just as they began to fear the worst, two figures appeared ahead. Daryl and Kelly had arrived. Now, only the last team, Carol and Beatrice, remained. Their route was longer, so they hadn't reached the group yet. Suddenly, a whisperer with a knife appeared in front of them. The whisperer noticed Carol and attempted to hide behind the zombies to avoid detection. Carol and Beatrice, unaware of the danger, continued on their path. The whisperer struck, slicing Beatrice's knife from her hand. Carol quickly stabbed the woman in the abdomen, and the scream immediately attracted the zombies around her. Even Daryl and the others heard the scream and grew anxious. The whisperers had already been pounced on by the zombies. Beatrice was also surrounded by zombies. Knowing she wouldn't survive, Beatrice quickly removed her backpack and handed it to Carol. Can't say Carol is selfish, but sometimes the woman is too cold-blooded. While the zombies were attracted, Carol quickly walked towards the woods. At the same time, a hand picked up the backpack and moved forward. Carol noticed but initially mistook the person for a whisperer. However, as the figure approached, she realized it was Lydia. The girl had come out to help. When the six of them saw the two of them, they didn't need to think that the screams were Beatrice's. Half an hour later, Beta suddenly heard something. It seems like there is a loud music coming from the woods. The sound almost covers the square. The zombies also turned and moved toward the forest. The commotion was too significant for the whisperers to control the zombies effectively. The sound was, of course, the result of the plan set in motion by the 8-person team. It was working. When the vehicle leads the zombie horde off the cliff, the whisperer no longer poses a threat.